Hey everyone, welcome back to our electric vehicle shopping series, or car extravaganza as we call it.
Yep.
This is our last car on our list.
Which is crazy that we've driven, I think, 6+ cars?
It feels like so many at this
Yes.
point.
I definitely feel like this EV car shopping series has really taken a lot of time, a lot of research, and a lot of effort on our part, as well as making sure that we produce these videos for everybody so you guys can get a good understanding of which EVs are out there on the market, and which ones are a great value. So we definitely saved, I would say, probably the best for last.
Or at least
one of the best.
Our favorite based on our initial impressions of all the cars we drove on our list. And if you're just seeing this video for the first time, we are starting an EV shopping series. We've had lots of cars on our list, like the Ioniq 5, the Mach-E, Tesla Model Y and Model 3, an ID4 all-wheel drive, and a Polestar 2. I think that covers all of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, you said ID4.
ID4.
Okay. Yep.
So that kind of covers it. We do have those videos. We'll link those in the description too, so you can kind of backtrack to see what other cars we've driven and our initial impressions. But today, we're going to be talking about the most exciting car, in our opinion, of what we drove.
Yes. And now this is a vehicle that I was really anticipating to fall in love with. It is the Kia EV6. This is a vehicle that we've really been keeping up with pretty much from the beginning, very similar to the Ioniq 5, keeping an eye out for the concepts and how it went into production, and just how other reviewers and journalists really liked the vehicle. So we're really excited to get our hands behind the wheel of an EV6. And we officially did, which is great because they are being sold literally all across the country at the moment, and they offer a fantastic value.
They do.
Yes. So we got a chance to go on I think it was a 30 to 45 minute test drive. We got a chance to drive through a nice forest area, so we got a chance to experience handling as well as potholes, because here in Cleveland it's terrible. And overall, the EV6 was a great vehicle, offered a great package for the price.
It did. We drove the Wind all-wheel drive in particular, but we also looked at the GT line all-wheel drive. We were thinking about the rear-wheel drive because if we move to Portland, we don't really need all-wheel drive, but we kind of wanted that extra power and the extra motor up front. So that's why we're looking at all-wheel drives.
Yeah, and you know, the EV6 versus the Ioniq 5, the Wind all-wheel drive offers things like standard vegan leather. You get a standard Meridian sound system, also ventilated and heated seats, as well as a heated steering wheel. With the Ioniq 5, you have to go up a few to either the SEL trim or the Limited just to get some of those features. But the ventilated seats, in my opinion, was probably one of the best.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And for the price, you couldn't beat it.
No, no. So obviously, you know, the EV6 definitely offers a great value for the price point. But let's start off with pros. What were some of the pros that you liked about the EV6?
I think we loved the performance of the car and the handling. It reminded us of I don't know, I think the sound inside the car reminded us of our time with the Taycan 4S, and that was cool. Kind of reminded us of a EV version of a longer EV version of a GTI in a way, because it kind of really felt like this really cool haunchy hatchback.
Yeah.
And I loved the design of it. GT line I prefer, but the Wind was super nice in the color that we had. That we drove.
Yeah, the color that we drove was called Glacier. We saw it at the Seattle Auto Show back in November, and it honestly, in studio lights, looked like it was like a melted vanilla ice cream cone, but outside it actually looked really good.
It did.
I was actually pretty impressed with it. But yeah, I agree with Tyler. You know, with our time with the Porsche Taycan 4S, the EV6 definitely reminded me of that when we put in sport mode and accelerated. The only difference between those vehicles is that the Taycan has a 2-speed gearbox, which also helps with performance. However, the EV6 with its single-speed gearbox definitely was very impressive. I mean, we definitely hit 60 miles per hour very quickly. I think it's rated 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds for the all-wheel drive versions of the EV6. And if you're looking for performance, a GT version is going to come out in under 4 seconds, 0 to 60.
Oh, yeah.
So Kia is definitely focusing on the performance aspects of the vehicle. Another thing that I was pretty impressed with was just how comfortable the vehicle was inside. So the one con that we're going to get to is headroom when it comes to the GT line with the sunroof, but the Wind doesn't come with a sunroof, and it's not even optional. So for me, who's 6'1", I always have issues with sunroof headspace, but the Wind offered plenty of headspace, and the seats were extremely comfortable. And they felt durable for them being for it being vegan leather. I think that's the thing that we're starting to notice, is that vegan leather is starting to become more durable. And with our dogs, that was definitely a concern for us. But I was pretty impressed with that.
I would say so. I would say, you know, as we were driving too, we really appreciated all the onboard tech in the car. This Wind all-wheel drive did have the tech package. So what was super cool is it had the blind spot cameras.
Yes.
You turned on the turn signal. I thought that was brilliant. We had a Honda Civic years ago that actually had the one blind spot camera, you know, on the passenger side. And I kind of wish Honda would have continued with that, but obviously Hyundai and Kia took over that and actually put it in the instrument cluster. I thought that was the coolest thing. I'm like, this is so cool to have that. It's a great feature.
Oh yeah, it's awesome to have that. You know, that way you also have the blind spot monitoring, but you also have the camera right in front of you, so when you put your blinker on, it automatically displays. And that's another pro that we had with the Kia as well as the Ioniq 5, is that Hyundai and Kia offers great initial build quality. The car was literally like tank silent, and I feel like I've said that for a lot of these vehicles, but the fact that it didn't have the sunroof, it offered a really quiet interior, and highway speeds there was barely any wind noise. The quality of the doors when they shut, it was super solid, and just overall very impressed. There was barely any panel gaps, everything was aligned properly. Just overall very impressed with the build quality of both the EV6 and the Ioniq 5.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then one of the other things that on our list was obviously cargo space.
That was a big concern of ours, because we knew that the EV6 had quite the rakish roof in the back. We found it, we actually brought our suitcases with us because, hey, you gotta test cars, right? Like if we're gonna be driving cross country, we gotta see how many suitcases can we fit in the back of the EV6. You know, we had two large suitcases in our ID4 that, you know, were side by side. When we put them in the EV6, we noticed we actually had a gap between both suitcases, unlike the ID4. Now, we lost cargo space above that compared to the ID4, but the EV6 seemed to have a wider cargo space than the Ioniq 5. That's what we were disappointed in the Ioniq 5, is it just felt so tiny in the cargo space. Like, day-to-day would be no problem for us. Like, absolutely no problem with, you know, the EV6, you know, day-to-day, but that was kind of our concern with cargo space. It's like, okay, can we fit 2 large suitcases, a duffel bag, the dog food, the dog toys, you know, all that stuff. And I think the EV6 we could manage with that. It was decent. The frunk, obviously, was enough for the charge port, or the charge cable, but that was it.
Yeah, that was, you know, the only downsides with what we had with the Ioniq 5 and the EV6 is that the front trunk is very small. You know, as Tyler mentioned, you could fit your charging cables in there, which definitely does save you space in the trunk. But the other downside with the cargo is that the underfloor storage, especially if the vehicle has like a subwoofer, it takes up a lot of cargo space. So really you only have the cargo space above that floor liner, which is kind of frustrating, essentially, because especially with electric vehicles, you don't need all the components that gasoline vehicles have, which if the vehicle was designed, they could essentially have a proper working storage space. So it was a little frustrating, but overall, I mean, the vehicle would be great day to day and traveling across country. We would have plenty of space for us and the dogs.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So now that we've talked about all the pros we loved about the EV6, we're going to talk about some of the cons that we had.
Yes.
And specifically, we're going to get into the GT line, because we were able to sit in one but not drive it. We just wanted to drive one with the all-wheel drive. But we ran into a problem with the GT line, which Brandon will explain what we ran into.
Yes. So, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm 6'1", and I've always had issues with vehicles that have sunroofs that open, not necessarily like panoramic sunroofs, because with panoramic sunroofs you don't need the mechanics that it takes to open a sunroof. But if the vehicle has a sunroof that opens, I've always had issues with that. Always. Even SUVs, sometimes the sunroof cuts into my headroom, and I don't necessarily like to sit up straight. But the thing is that we really like the design and the styling aspects of the GT line version of the EV6. So we were really excited to sit in it. And the moment I sat in it and got my seat in the proper position, I could not move my head to the left to see the mirror next to me because of how much headroom I didn't have. My head was literally stuck, and it was as far as the seat went down. And I think we looked into it, and actually, if you get the GT line with the sunroof, it cuts down the headroom by about 3 inches. Which is nuts. And to me, I really wish that that the engineers would have figured that out more, because cutting into 3 inches of headroom just to have a sunroof is just, to me, a little disappointing. So, and you would fit perfectly.
I fit in any car.
Yes.
So for me, it's never a problem for me. I think for the EV6, they should have offered at least a half glass roof. Because that would have been able, because our ID4 has a pano roof, and you have no problems with that. Actually, any car that has a pano roof, Brandon has no problems fitting in there.
No issues.
It's just, I remember even in our Honda Civic we had years ago, you kind of had a little bit of headroom issues in that because it had a sunroof.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was very disappointing for us, because we really wanted to get the GT line. But when we realized that Brandon was going to be comfortable, that definitely was crossed off our list. We still love the Wind all-wheel drive, especially with the tech package that we drove, but we love the aesthetics of the GT line.
Yeah.
Sounds disappointing.
Yeah. So, if the EV6 trim that we would end up with would be the Wind all-wheel drive, which is kind of that middle ground between the base and the top trim GT, or the GT line, which is totally fine with us. The nice thing is that even the GT line and the Wind offer the same EPA-rated range of over 270 miles on the all-wheel drive versions. And you get a lot of the same tech features. The only difference is a lot of styling, as well as different fabric interiors, and different styling interiors with ambient lighting. So it really isn't much of a sacrifice to go to the Wind, but we definitely like the sportier styling of the GT line. Yeah. So another con that we have is the sound system. And now the really cool thing about the EV6 is that it does come standard with a Meridian sound system, which is typically reserved for luxury vehicles. In fact, I believe prior to the birth of the Genesis line back in 2010, 2011, Meridian was really only reserved for Rolls-Royce and
Jaguars.
Very high-end brands. And now the EV6 does come standard with a Meridian sound system. I believe it is a surround sound system. The only thing is that just because it has the name Meridian does not make it a good system. And we picked up on that immediately. It sounded good. It sounded a lot better than our ID4.
Yes, very true.
It sounded much better, but the only thing is that it lacked a lot of depth. There wasn't, even if we had the bass all the way up, it just felt like there was something missing.
I just felt like, especially the mid and the bass, there was, no matter how you adjusted it, and we looked at videos and tutorials online to try to adjust the sound system ahead of time so we knew how to adjust it properly, it still didn't make a difference. You could barely feel the thump of the subwoofer. It was back there in the trunk. We checked it.
Yeah.
You just couldn't really feel it or hear it. And it didn't feel that crisp.
No.
Either.
It missed depth, and it missed out on crispness.
Crispness.
Say that a few times fast. But yeah, it definitely missed out on those aspects. And for us being, wanting a nice sound system, it definitely was not there. In fact, I actually felt like the Ioniq 5's bass sound system sounded better. And the Ioniq 5 offers a Bose sound system, in which we didn't get a chance to test. But yeah, the Meridian sound system on the EV6 was not there at all.
So that was disappointing. I mean, at least it was better than our ID4, so we gave it that. Yep. But we were just disappointed with the end result of the system.
Yeah.
So we only have 2 more cons left for the EV6. These are just kind of minor things, I think. The one disappointment for us was charging, just in terms of how much free charging you're able to get.
Yeah.
The Ioniq 5 gets 2 years at EA, and we're like, oh, awesome, that's going to get us across country, and, you know, however many trips we want to do in between, and, you know, getting to Portland and, you know, getting settled, and even doing trips around here. But the EV6 only comes with 1,000 kilowatts, which we could just barely make the journey to our new home out west on that, which was disappointing.
Yeah, and you know, like other vehicles in this class, like the ID4 gets free 30-minute unlimited charges at Electrify America stations. The Mach-E only gets 250 kilowatt hours at the Electrify America station. So yes, the EV6 is better than the Mach-E in that aspect, but for me, I just don't understand. Kia and Hyundai are essentially the same company, even though they're very different in many different aspects, and I know they operate their companies differently as well. But it would be nice if they would have offered that for EV6 customers. As Tyler mentioned, we could have got across the country, but at the same time, we probably would have paid for a few stops. Which, I mean, we will do, but it just would have been nice if that was a nice, offering.
Nice offer.
Yeah. And now the last con we had is actually something we experienced with the Ioniq 5 as well. So both Ioniq 5 and the EV6, as well as the forthcoming Genesis GV60, they have 12-inch dual 12-inch screens that are mounted to the dashboard. And what's the downside about that is that when you adjust the steering wheel, it creates a very awkward viewing position of the screens. Not necessarily like the infotainment screen where you have like your Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. We're talking about like where you see your speed, your range, and all the data that's meaningful for drivers. For us, we literally had to put the steering wheel all the way up and pull it out a little bit to see the speed. If you have it any lower, the top of the steering wheel actually blocks the speed. And that was actually something we both experienced in the Ioniq 5 and the EV6.
Yeah. I would say, like, if we went for the GT line, I know some of the products like the Ioniq 5 Limited offers, like, a heads-up display. That would have been, not a problem. Even for me being short and Brendan being tall, we could not get a comfortable steering position.
Not at all.
Be able to see, I want to be able to see everything, too. And that's one thing that we love about our ID4 is that cluster moves with the steering column.
Yep.
And I feel like all EVs should do that. Or, they should have a wider opening for that steering wheel.
Yeah.
It was a comfortable steering wheel, but we just want to be able to see all the information in that instrument cluster.
So the last section of this video is the research we've done, and it's very similar to the other EVs that we've shopped. Most of our research has been done watching YouTubers and watching videos online. We've watched Doug DeMero's videos, Redline Reviews, Alex on Autos, Out of Spec Motors, Kelly Blue Book.
And I think that's about it.
Yes, and we've done a lot of research utilizing Kia's website to learn more about the EV6. But the great thing about watching YouTube videos is that a lot of these YouTubers go in depth when it comes to like charging, as well as the vehicle's history and like how well made the vehicles are, and quirks of the vehicle, which Doug DeMero dives into. So we've definitely learned a lot through watching online videos. So if you're interested in EV6, definitely dive into those content because it helps a lot.
It does.
Yes.
It does.
Yep.
Well, that's it. That's literally our last car on our list for our EV shopping series. Let us know what you think about our videos and about our list. We're kind of at the end here. We've been super busy with work, super busy with driving cars on the weekends whenever we can and recording. So now we're doing a bunch of decision making, trying to figure out, what car is best for us. And also kind of look at inventory because availability is literally all over the place for all of these cars. So that's, our big concern is like trying to find an available car at the right time.
Yeah, without a markup.
Without a markup.
And that is proving to be very difficult. So hopefully the next video that we publish, we will have made a purchase. Hopefully. And we will get that video out to you guys. So as always, if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to Everyday EV, like and share this video with your friends, and take care, stay safe, and
make every day electrifying.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.